or good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Featured Member. I am absolutely delighted that for December, the last member 2020 to be featured by APA is the amazing Ros. Darling, I'm pretty sure most people know by now that before we start recording, there are conversations I want. But you have literally brought tears to my eyes just with the absolute bundle of joy that you are. So thank you very much for that.
You're welcome. Quality, you see. Quality.
It's quality. It is. Ladies and gentlemen, anyone watching this is going to be slightly different because Ros and I have a shared passion, and no, not like that. You see what I mean? You see, Ros is someone who, when she introduces herself and shares some of her experience, most of you that know me will get a thing. But Ros has military experience that I could only dream of. Look, I knew she would.
This was me in my slim days when I could actually run cross country. With a silly felt hat on.
To anybody that has worn that silly felt hat.
Yeah, well, it never started anyway.
Thank you for everyone that has worn one of those uniforms. As most of you know, I am a massive supporter of military service in the UK, worldwide, and Ros, for your service, I am thanking you. But let's get to featured member, because you're not just a former military member. You are also one of the most amazing professionals across. So let's give everyone a bit of an introduction. Because I could blow compliments all night.
Bring them on. Bring them on.
It's your turn. We're not doing this. Come on.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, I mean, do you know? I think that the laughter is it's the outlet. It's the outlet to be used because so I mean I'm told I'm older than I look, and I think I am older than I look, because I say to some people I'm nearly 53 and they can't actually believe it, but I am. And in those years, oh bless, in those years there's a lot happened. So so there's a lot that I've sort of done and seen, and I sometimes, in a way, almost, I mean, I wonder whether this is because we're terribly British and we're not very good at blowing our own trumpets or kind of saying, yes, I've done that and I've done that, I've done that. But when I actually look back and I think, yes, I've served in the Royal Air Force. Yes, I've done acute NHS psychiatry service. Yes, I've done some general nurse training. Yes, I've helped in hip replacement and hysterectomies. And it's like, wow, you know, looking back even on myself, I think, how did you pack that in? But it did. It just all seemed to flow. And I think it was that I was never cut out to be somebody who sat behind. I mean, I'm in front of a screen now, obviously, but I wasn't destined to be in an office in Norwich Union doing people's insurance quotes. It just wasn't. And I don't know whether that's because it came down from my dad, who was a paratrooper in the Second World War. That's sort of that element of you do something with people to serve people.
Yeah, and I think that's something that has come through in all of the interactions that we've had with you, is that passion to serve and to support others is at the forefront of what you do. So let's rewind. So we've got military service with the RAF.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, fly boys. Okay, thank you. Okay, because it wouldn't be the same if the RAF was a male-only environment.
And there are jobs for everybody, and that's not some kind of, you know, PC catch line that everybody's told to say. It genuinely is. There's a role for most, you know, most people, to be fair.
I mean, it's pretty much and it's changed over the years, but it is very much a society within a society. And if you think of all of the roles that are in our social fabric, the UK military pretty much replicates all of that. And the work that you've done with the military and the experiences that you've had have given you so much more flexibility and resilience outside of the military. I don't think a lot of people realise is possible.
Yeah, I think that's very much a truth, and I wonder sometimes whether that's because that there's perhaps an impression that people who are minded to join the military do so straight out of school or straight out of college, whereas perhaps I kind of came in with a different route, because I'd already been qualified as a mental health nurse for 10 years before I even got there. So whilst there was a very strong sort of sense of if it needs doing, get on and do it, which certainly fits in well within the military community, that there was also perhaps a background global overview that maybe I'd kind of, well, not found myself, but maybe I knew where I was at anyway, and I simply had something to offer them, and it was accepted. So, but I certainly did find wherever I've been, whether it's NHS or military, it sometimes rather depends on the reasons why people need to join. You know, if they're looking for a massive family to belong, then, you know, leaving the military can be a huge issue, because suddenly that family has said you no longer belong. And
and there is that kind of what's the route in that impacts the route out. And that's the same for any career. It's the same for, you know, sports personnel that make it to the elite level. It's the same for the military. It's the same for those that go into nursing. You know, if you go into nursing for the right reasons, then you will have an amazing career.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I fell into nursing. It's a very strange thing. I wasn't at school thinking that I'm going to be a nurse. It was a very strange kind of just finding myself there, really. I mean, I was sort of toying with the idea of either being a lawyer or a physiotherapist. That's about as close as I got. But one of my first jobs, when you're at school and you have your Saturday job and you're taking tea and coffee around at a private hospital, I found myself absolutely fascinated. Like, what are they doing with that drip? What are they doing that for? Why? And it's this eternal curiosity of, I want to know why and how, and then maybe I want to do it myself. So I kind of fell into that. But then general nursing and I kind of, we fell out, because I know that my supervisor kind of is incredibly good and reminds me of my justice button that gets pressed quite frequently these days. So, but there was something about not being able to ask questions. That why are we doing it this way? Would it not be more convenient that way? And more often than not, the answers were, that is wrong. You do it that way because we've always done it that way. And I just couldn't sit well with that. And then found myself looking at psychiatry, where we were positively encouraged to question and challenge and be really quite vocal, which suited me no end.
The reason why we get on so well. Let's pull this apart and find out what's actually going on, and then let's put it back together so it goes the way it's supposed to go. I think when you look at that transition, so mental health nursing, into the military, come back out. The reasons for you to go into mental health nursing in the first place, what do you think triggered that?
I think that it very much stemmed from my own experiences of growing up and thinking that this can't be all that is. You know, why are these people doing these things? And certainly that curiosity stayed within that, and it remains to this day. You know, what is it that's fueling these people to act in this way? What behavior is that talking about? What need is underneath the behavior? Because there can't just be that's just because I do it, which I suppose fits in with the, you know, I don't sit well with, I'll do it because we've always done it that way. Yeah.
And that route really kind of, it's a powerful route that bleeds everything. It feeds everything. It's that curiosity that says there's got to be something in that route that needs to be understood.
Yeah.
And if we can understand what's in the root, then we can actually start to shape what we grow out of that.
Yeah, and in terms of giving a person choice, that so often it seems that the stress, the pain, the dis-ease, as in not feeling easy with oneself or in life in general, is from not having any agency in it, or feeling like there's no agency to be had, that your voice is as of nothing.
Yeah, blows in the wind.
Yeah.
And again, you know, the military perception, I think, has almost been warped in recent years, because the idea that there's a voice at the top that says this is what happens, and down, 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 and then the poor grunt on the ground has to follow that through. In operations in the last sort of 30, 40 years, that's almost been flipped on its head. And the grunt on the ground is the one saying, this is what's going on, what do I need to do?
Yeah.
Or what am I permitted to do in this situation? And the training will do some of that. And then up the chain of command goes that what can we let these guys get on with in the moment is more of what actually happened. And when we look at that from the outside and somebody leaves that and they've got that experience behind them of being able to make autonomous decisions on the ground, what's needed, and then have that support behind them, that doesn't happen so easily.
No.
Is it?
No, and it's very much the sense of group that somebody's got your back, possibly less so in the Air Force, because you're rather, or certainly my experience was, you're rather more an individual, and you can be posted out wherever on your own. You don't go in a squad or a battalion as one, you know, quite homogenous group. But yeah, there is still that sense of knowing that when you get to where you're going, there'll be people there who automatically understand your place because they can count how many stripes or pips you've got, so that they know automatically, do I salute, do I pay attention to what you say, or is it me that has to tell you what to do? That there still is that chain of command because you're answerable, but there is very much that sort of that group and knowing that somebody will be there to catch you.
Yeah, and it's that kind of sense, I feel, that when we take that mindset of, I have the flexibility as an individual, I can make decisions as an individual based on my knowledge, my understanding, my experience, my training, that the team behind you understand that you have those elements and that it's for you to make those choices.
Yeah, which is probably more relevant where I was, because doing community nursing in whatever arena, you're very much the clinician in that moment in charge. If you're visiting somebody in their home, in their barracks, you're the one making the decision then. But again, you know that you're doing so with the backup of others.
Yeah. And we're seeing more of that mindset leak into the likes of the NHS. We're seeing more of that leaking into good business practice and kind of the reduction of micromanagement. We're seeing more of it leak into our overall mental health awareness, that it's the individual that is kind of the guardian of their own path, if you like.
Yeah, and I think that has to be allowed, because it does seem that in places where it's not allowed, where the individual's voice is not heard, that those are the places that do seem to have that not so shiny reputation, shall we say, or they have that, you know, lots of people leave. I mean, staff turnover is always a really good indication as to.
And people never leave a job, do they? They leave the people.
They leave the manager, don't they? To be fair,
invariably.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be nice and.
Well, but it happens, doesn't it? I mean, I've certainly, you know, I mean, only twice in my life I've left a job for the manager, you know, just because it was just impossible. So, you know, because even though they're not like micromanaging, or that they do need to not be making it impossible for you to do your job.
And it's that functionality of the day-to-day, isn't it? But I think when we look at that transition from a worked environment to a self-determining environment, and I want to say self-employed because of all of the things that go along with that in our arena, it's very much a case of having the flexibility to be able to make those decisions in the moment that they're needed.
Yeah.
And you know, we were talking earlier about the situation of working with somebody that is caught in that military mindset, that sometimes being the fluffy, soft, let's guide you here, let's give you this, let's make this. It invariably works with some, but more often than not, it actually goes the opposite direction, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think you're right there, and I think that perhaps highlights the need to know something of the person you're working with. If they are of that very distinctive chain of command mindset, then you have to kind of aim yourself at the level at which they will hear you. And sometimes your voice has to be either loud or cutting enough to kind of step into the crisis circle that they're within, because maybe you can see it's going to end up very badly if somebody doesn't get in there and interrupt. And sometimes from the outside, if you're perhaps not aware of the etiology of the situation, it can look a little bit harsh, but sometimes you have to just go, oi, no. Get. Other times, it's a case of being. I mean, I have also used not just the uniform and the authority, but I've wandered down a ward and very gently spoken to a guy, because as you saw the picture, I was slim and little, and but yeah, off I went in my slim little thing with my little shoes on, and absolutely used the female bit of "I'm small, you won't hurt me, will you?" It was necessary. It was fluffy, and this guy didn't actually hurt anybody, although everybody else was hiding. But he needed help. Yeah.
And sometimes that crisis moment, I think, kind of lends itself to two mindsets kicking. And I'm not talking about flight or fright.
Yeah, no.
It's this mindset of, is this going to stop now?
Yeah.
Or is this something that I'm going to have to deal with long term?
Yeah.
Either way, I need to make a decision. I need to make a decision now. And I think a lot of, like you say, the perception of anybody looking at that situation and that environment and seeing someone going in to a situation and going, right, you move, you out the way. I need to deal with this individual, and I need to deal with this individual at the level that they are at. And if that means I have to raise my voice, if that means I have to shout this person down, or I have to explain to them the impacts of what they're doing in graphic detail for them to go, no, that's not what I'm trying to do here.
Yeah.
That's what needs to be done at that moment in time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But having the confidence as an individual to be able to, one, make that decision, to carry it out, can often be really upsetting for anybody on the outside of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think even in those moments of severe crisis where there is just the flailing, the shouting, the damage being done, I think that there is underneath still a human capacity to feel and sense the intentions of the person who is attending to you. And certainly with every single intervention, it has been utterly with the intention of, this is not useful for you. There is something you're trying to say. There's something not okay, but this is not helpful. Let me get you out of this.
So we can get to that.
Yeah, which is either panicking everybody who's going, quick, get the doctor or the police, get lots of drugs or whatever. But maybe something has gone on. But this can't continue because there'll be consequences for this.
Yeah.
And whether it's, you know, a quiet word in your ear, or as you say, a proper old shout from the other end of the ward because you can see it's going to kick off. Yeah. But it's with the intention of communication, of connection. Yeah.
And I think one of the things that has struck me over recent years is the public perception of anybody coming out of the military is deemed one view. Almost as though anyone coming out of the military, the public perception is PTSD, trauma, difficulties, domestic disharmony, and all of these connotations that have been put in place in order to get support to the small groups that need that support. But it's been presented in such a way that the perception is that actually that's everybody.
Yeah, it isn't everybody. It most certainly it isn't everybody, because all of the forces, I mean, yes, their primary aim is protection of the country, it's defence of the country, it's that. And if push comes to shove, yes, fighting, yes, killing. But not everybody's in the front line. Not that you've got so many behind the scenes. You've got. I'm reluctant to say the backroom people, but they're not right at the very forefront of anything that's going to be properly dodgy.
Yeah.
You've got your admin. You've got your PTIs. You've got your medics. Well, yeah, medics. They'll probably be fairly near the front line, but they're only really going to be picking up guns and shooting people if they're about to be overrun. They're not actively in the fighting role.
It is that replication of, this is a social infrastructure that has a particular task to do.
Yeah. And
not everyone is going to be an accountant.
No. I mean,
it's, not everyone is going to be the classroom teacher. Not everyone. So the public perception that everyone that comes out of forces or comes out from serving with military experience, even if it's in operational fields, is going to be from that frontline operational delivery of hard diplomatic failure, ultimately what it comes to.
Yeah.
The majority is not that.
No.
The majority of people that come out from the services are rounded, balanced, effective, extremely well trained, and capable of that flexibility of response to crisis, as well as the day-to-day functionality that is needed, because
Absolutely.
that's the majority of what your experience has been.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah.
And
so there is the possibility, and it's certainly not wanting to say that it's only frontline who will be struggling with PTSD.
yeah,
Sometimes
trauma is not about conflict, we know.
No.
I think you're right. It's prudent to make have the clarification, because trauma is not being.
Oh no.
That is not the measure here.
No, I mean it's traumatic for certain, but it doesn't necessarily impact everybody exactly the same. And I can put my hand up and say my trauma wasn't military service. My trauma was being knocked off a motorbike and most certainly looking at the Grim Reaper that day. That was traumatic. And working in the NHS and a guy deciding that he wanted to try and kill at least 3 of us. Yeah, that was traumatic. So yeah, no, PTSD actually wasn't from military service.
and this is the thing: is the correlation between, I love that word, correlation between military service and trauma has been warped in recent times. And one of the things that, you know, certainly with the BITIMO program that Apple works with, kind of changes the balance of that perception. And I know it's something that you work to kind of promote, the idea that not everyone who comes out from the military is carrying. It can be that they actually had a bike accident while they were in uniform. Lawrence of Arabia did.
Yeah, exactly.
No?
Yeah. I mean, I suppose the benefit is that I mean, obviously one of the differences is that everybody in the forces will have signed the Official Secrets Act, and there'll be many things that they can never speak of, never mention again. Certainly can never speak of to
a civilian.
because to do so, it just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So I suppose if anybody was to perhaps come to myself or to other people who've done the psychology, the psychiatry level of military work, that they can mention them, because we're equally as bound by that act, and we've probably heard about it, and some of us may have been on the same operation. So yeah, I'm not telling you anything. But they can speak of it, whereas I have to admit, it did puzzle me shutting the military hospitals, because that was a concern of mine, that military staff would then be attended by civilian staff who could never be told.
Yeah. And it shuts down that avenue. It's one of the things that I know we've got a conversation planned with Nick Kellogg, who also connected to the military, and one of the things that we're kind of exploring is how is it that the public perception is, I can speak to a counsellor because you've got confidentiality, etc., etc. The Official Secrets Act is a whole different ballgame that most therapeutic professionals won't even contemplate when someone says, "I served in the military."
Yeah.
And that's something that I think within the community, the therapeutic community, there needs to be a greater awareness of moving forward. But because as most people know, when we get together, we can chat all afternoon. So I'd like to kind of look at the hopes that you've got for the whole of mental health arena. You've got some of the deepest and widest ranging experience that I think most people could kind of probably imagine. And as we kind of come off of 2020 with the year from the proverbial, I mean, I see it as a year of opportunity, because we can see all of the things that don't work. And we can see the things that really do work. And we've got an opportunity to say, right, the things that don't work, they stay here.
Yeah.
We take forward the things that do work, and now we can see the gaps.
Yeah.
What needs to go into those gaps?
Yeah, that's, gosh, how long have you got? Well, I mean, I think what first comes to mind is, sadly, the horribleness that we're hearing. I mean, certainly around this area, that there's a massively acute awareness of people who are utterly desperate, and the sheer overwhelm of the NHS. And that I mean, I have genuinely heard of people who have been in distress for a while, not necessarily 2020 related, but they're still waiting for an assessment 2 or 3 years down the line, and they are massively struggling and being massively medicated, which oftentimes they're not greatly, enamored with, and are finding problems with that level of intervention. So I'm hopeful that from 2020 there'll come an understanding of the very real and necessary need to make contact, to connect with other people in a meaningful way. And I'm thinking in terms of actually working deeply and in relational depth with folks. So yes, go and see a therapist, go and see a coach who is psychologically aware, to almost help to further remove the stigma of, well, it must be something to do with me, I must be failing. Well, I don't think anybody's failing at the moment. I think the world has gone completely mad, and it's such a nonsense and unbelievable situation for all of us. I think it's a very reasonable response to feel a little bit unhinged at the moment. So, yeah.
And I think with the work that was done during the summer in collaboration, when we worked with professionals from right across the sector, irrelevant of membership affiliation, and we were able to produce the post-trauma care response framework. Being able to get every qualified professional into a capacity where the NHS can reach out and say, we need your support. Yes, there are conditions to that, but we need more than what we've currently got in the system, and we cannot wait for the current system to feed those individuals in. If you are qualified, if you are available, and you are prepared to work within the criteria of NHS and of disciplinary pathways, which is ultimately what anyone who works with the NHS will be kind of tied to, then we need these people working. We need the NHS has got access if they choose to take it. And by zoning the professionals in the way that the framework suggests, you have professional support that's zoned to match the operational need. Yeah,
absolutely. And is available, as you say. It's available. I mean, we're out here. We're ready. We can respond very quickly indeed. We can do that. And I suppose in tied in with the getting people working at relational depth to feel more human again, I think is also inherently tied in this business of certain sectors of corporate society, if you will, maybe not having this castle building, empire building thing. If you need a service, go get it. Don't. I mean, gosh, it was quite a thing. Because I left the NHS because you just couldn't do the job that was necessary. People were in and out in crisis, and I'd be asking questions like, well, where can they go for support in between times because they keep coming into acute care, and the answer would be there is nowhere, and that didn't seem right. So and then I left so that I could do a job properly for as long or as short a time as needed. And the instant I wasn't employed by the NHS, I was a nobody. I was like, well, this person who keeps coming in, just give them my name. You don't have to recommend me, but, you know, give them some cards, give them some pointers. They can choose who they want to see, but they're like, oh, no, we don't do that. We don't do that. So they were cut off, you know. Oh, hello. Oh, bless. Okay.
Are you comfortable?
Yes.
Thank you.
Definitely.
And it was described the system that we had, that kind of rotation, everything else, and what that has created for the NHS was described to me by a long-term, almost lifelong friend connected to the military. It says what the NHS is like a submarine, right?
Yeah.
It goes along. You don't really know that it's there until you need it.
Yeah.
And what they've done, being the therapeutic sector, is come along to the NHS and go, you need this kind of door. Your hatches aren't working for therapy. So you need a revolving door.
Yeah.
A revolving door in a submarine will sink a submarine.
Yes.
The NHS is sinking under the weight of the therapeutic demands upon it because the system that it's using is a revolving door one.
Yeah, because they're not willing to tap into the support services outside, it would seem, and certainly that was the very clear message that I received at any time I asked. So yeah.
And for me, yeah, having that analogy was given to me probably about January, February this year. And that was as the crisis was really starting to become known.
Yeah.
What we were heading for.
Yeah.
And I think it's only got worse.
Yes, it has.
The system of helplines to mental health first aiders, and don't get me wrong, mental health first aiders are a brilliant development within our sector. And they are desperately needed. The more people that have that, the better. But to rely on mental health first aiders to be the first point of contact on the end of a helpline when you've got frontline practitioners experiencing trauma after trauma after trauma is only re-traumatizing those individuals. But it's also traumatizing those mental health first aiders.
I fear so. I fear there's so much truth in that, and that history would sadly seem to show that until it gets to such a fever pitch, it kind of isn't really noticed terribly much. But yeah, I fear that is so. It's almost like having and again, I'm not putting anybody down, but it's like having a St John's ambulance volunteer to do heart surgery, and that there is a gap. Yeah, there's a chasm. Yeah, well, it is, and it's not because of anybody failing. It's not because somebody's incapable. It simply exists. This chasm between what volunteer first aid will supply on a physical sense and the intricacies of what may well have caused that collapse that St John's have been attended to in the first place. You need both of them. You need first aid who attend first but then direct elsewhere, and you also need the heart surgeon to do the intricate and incredibly skilled job. And as you say, there are so many skilled psychological therapists out there who've been in the military, the NHS, who've dealt with situations that would make other people's hair curl. Yes. So, you know, the things that would perhaps terrify some to even hear, that there are lots of us out here who can work with it.
Yeah. And the saddest part for me is that the reason that is not happening is the sector itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
the anchor on the support is being held by the sector. The sector, the professionals can say, no, we are available, you need us, you need to activate us. And the only way to do that is to get vocal and ultimately go, you know what, you're letting yourselves down. Your service users are being let down because you're accepting something that you do not need to accept. And there are means and ways of doing it and everything else, and I understand that.
Yeah.
But you know, APA has made it blatantly clear where we stand. The professionals are there. They need to be activated. And 2021, we need as many of them active as possible.
Very much so, yeah.
You know, the systems that we were in, you know, if we cast our mind back to 2019, people were saying there's a mental health crisis. Well, if we were saying there was a mental health crisis before C19 decided to come and give us a battering, then what the doodahs are we in now? And the systems that we had 2019 got us to the situation we had in 2019. We can't use the same systems to get out of worse than we were in when the systems weren't working.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is why I see 2021 as really the kind of launch pad of clean therapy.
Yeah.
Because we can take away those kind of hurdles, those bottlenecks that don't need to be there for any other reason than they support a minority of the sector, but are kind of, you know, the containment of everybody else.
Yeah, I like the notion of clean therapy. I do like that. The unencumbered, the not affiliated with certain places, the not
qualified is qualified.
But it is, isn't it? It just is. I mean, you to get qualified, you'll have done supervised hours. Most probably, you'll have done your own work on your own stuff through your own therapy in there. The requirements are quite arduous to actually get there.
Yeah.
And it's puzzled me no end to find that suddenly you're not qualified enough or not good enough. Okay.
Qualified is qualified. Affiliated is affiliated.
Yeah.
Voluntary register is voluntary registration.
Yeah.
Cannot mandate somebody to be on a voluntary register.
No,
do not go together.
No.
And to argue for it is to take ethical connectivity and throw it out the window because of the gain to whatever the registrar says. There are various voluntary registers available. I totally accept that APA is one of them. I totally accept that every single professional should be affiliated to a membership body for the ethical boundaries and frameworks that affiliation brings, and the support that it gives to the public.
Yes.
But I also know that if you are working for an organisation and something goes wrong, they're not going to your affiliated body, they're going to their own HR, they're going to their own disciplinary processes and taking you through that, and then going to your affiliated body and saying, we need to let you know that's what's happened. So right now, in a time of national crisis, the bottleneck needs to be taken, is my view.
Yeah. Yeah.
But this is about you and your featured member state.
Yes. but it's all relevant though. It's all relevant.
And this is why we don't pull names out of hats and go, hey, look, what's this? Vonnie and I sit down, we go through the membership, we look at the membership audits and look at what people are doing, we look at websites, we look at functionality, we look at what someone is presenting publicly and go, that's something that Joe Public or Joanne Public, I don't want to upset anybody, should really be aware of.
Yeah.
And for us, with the featured member, the last featured member for the year, we wanted to make sure that what people got from APA was a full range of members that have a full range of experiences behind them. So what is it that you absolutely love about what it is that you do? I think that will give people more of a sight of what it is.
I think, do you know what? I thoroughly enjoy meeting people. I thoroughly enjoy meeting people and finding out about people. Not in terms of interrogation. I mean, let's
not go down that.
It's not a. I don't do tick box. I don't send out forms to be filled in to be sent back here. People come in cold. I turn up cold. We meet. I like to try and keep it as we meet as fellow human beings. There's something amiss. Let's have a look at it. Let's see what can be done with it. Is there anything can be done with it? Is it even your fault? Just to join with that person with that aim and that purpose of this is what we're looking at. We want to improve something, remove something, for want of a better phrase, that something needs to change. And I know that there are some people come and so I'm maybe, I feel like I'm being pedestal placed a bit. So I have to sort of manage that and almost not come off the pedestal too quickly, because that's necessary for them to hold a faith in some way. But I'm meeting with fellow human beings who more often than not have been dealt a really bad hand of cards, very bad indeed, and somehow are carrying the blame for it when they weren't the dealer. Yeah. So it's about walking with them during this short space of time in their life. And the absolute joy that I have is in those beautiful light bulb moments when they're sitting there and they're going, oh, that's what I'm doing, or that's what was going on, and it just clicks for them. And then I know that they'll be away and out the door in 2 or 3 weeks' time, because they've had that opportunity to notice and to feel deep within themselves that the meaning and the proper placement of what it is. Yeah. And then they can reclaim what they're due to have as a human being. And I love it when they walk out the door. I love it.
It's like,
my accountant thinks I'm mad, but you know.
Yeah, the normal business models do not apply here. I don't need repeat business. Thank you very much. Please. You know, the self-awareness that, and this is something that Vonnie and I kind of discussed in making the decisions around featured member. The self-awareness, not only that comes from you as an individual, but that you allow others to develop in themselves is phenomenal. And it's phenomenal to watch when you're interacting, how that self-awareness, everything that we know that you've got in the back of the can, as it were, that you're able to kind of filter out. I need to bring this bit here. I don't need to bring this bit, this bit, this bit until then. I don't need to do, and that know-how, that comfort, but also, like you say, that going into a situation cold, that comfort at the uncomfortability of that moment is something that stands out for us when we were looking at kind of who we were going to make featured member for December. So on those alone, you know, congratulations, because they're not easy skill sets to deliver organically, and you very much do that, and it's noticeable. So you know, congratulations, and every day is a try.
Yeah.
You know, because every day you could fall into that complacency. And like you say, every moment that you're having with that client, there is that unconditional positive regard. Whatever's gone on, it's not who you are, it's what's happened to you.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that I mean, I suppose that I mean, thinking back when I was working in a therapeutic community style place, right out in the middle of nowhere, so it was us deal with it or wait half an hour for somebody else, so you dealt with it. But oh gosh, yeah, there was a time when there was a great deal of anger about a situation, and some damage was done to the fabric of the place, and the person went off and went to their room, slammed the door, was very angry, and was busy trashing their things. And the consensus was, leave them alone, they're dangerous. And actually, I didn't feel that. I felt somebody who was hurting and didn't know what else to do about it and needed to be heard. So in actual fact, I did what people were telling me not to do, and off I went and knocked on the door, and I just wanted to know they were all right. And funnily enough, they told me all sorts of stuff in that moment, and the trashing of things stopped. And it's hearing people who've not been heard.
Yeah. And you know, the analogy that I give to the people that I work with sometimes is the wind has taken your sails and you're heading for the rocks. There is nothing you can do. The rudder is gone, navigation is gone, there's no engine, you are just heading straight into the rocks. And if I can take the wind away and slow that path down, you to make sure that you don't hit those rocks.
Yeah.
I can work with you if you let me.
Yeah. And in that, there is sometimes the very reasonable step in and be rather more directive to say, right, okay, so if that's happening, that might be a better option. What do you think? Obviously not, you know, instructing or prescribing, but to be a little bit more directive, to point at things as a maybe an option to consider. Because it always strikes me, you know, if we were mountain Sherpas guiding people along, and maybe we were walking behind people because it's their journey to make, would we not say, oh, don't stop there, if that was a potentially dodgy place to be? Would we not go, oh, actually, we would, wouldn't we?
Have you seen this?
Yeah, we would call out to make people aware. And I think sometimes it's challenging, it's directing, but with the whole aim of that their voice is so important throughout it anyway.
Yeah, and it's the very heart of what we do, and that kind of support system, the team system, everything else that comes into play, just when it stays at the person at the center of it, whether we're using person-centered approach or not, the person is always what's important. Always has to be. Always has to be. And it's beautiful to see it. It's great to chat as always. I know that we are going to be doing more conversations in the near future. So I look forward to that. One of those conversations we're going to look at is around the closed shop recruitment within the sector.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
How we can get around that as professionals, because you know this is something that's been groomed into the psyche of employers, recruiters, businesses, etc. And some of the things that you've done recently to deal with that. And again, I'm really looking forward to having that conversation. I have one more question just before.
Okay.
Why APA? What was it about APA that struck you and got you interested in the work of ANA?
The overwhelming sense of that things can be done, they can be done differently. We don't have to fight with people. We don't have to engage with things that maybe are not beneficial all the time. But I think it's the can-do attitude. I think it's the questioning that really got me. It's like, well, why? Why? Can it be done better? Well, let's do it in a different way. Let's do it. I think it's the can-do attitude. Yeah.
Well, thank you for that.
No, you're welcome. What I say it as I see it. I do.
I say, love, I tell you, it's been fun.
I'm getting all northern, aren't I?
To all my northern friends, hello.
Do you know what?
That's as close as I can get.
No, do you know what? They're lovely up here. I'm a southerner and I keep apologising to people, but do you know what? They're not troubled.
I love all peoples. I love them.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say to everyone that's watched this, thank you very much for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed the conversation. You stop and get me laughing again. Jeez. Terrible. She does this, people. She's done. Not nice. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope you'll join us on another member episode. There are other conversations and other series on the YouTube channel, so by all means go check those out. If you have gained anything from this conversation, you are more than welcome to complete the CPD questionnaire that will be linked to this video, and get a CPD certificate if you've got value that's going to help you and your. Take care for now. Guys, thank you so much. I know you're biting your lip.
I'm not. I'm not. No.
Ladies and gentlemen, have a great day, and we will see you on another episode very soon.